Cachamaniacs.
GeoGearHeads.
It's another stellar episode of the GeoGearHeads, number 89 in fact. And we're talking tonight about the listener-supplied tips from the 2013 Traveler Race. For my co-host, Daryl W4, I'm the bad cop, and this show will be filled with tips and tricks from your fellow geocachers.
Yeah, that's 2 shows in a row now, driven from the audience, and next week is going to be a third. We're doing our 16th randomized edition, and we've already received a voicemail from Dudley Grunt and an email from Ed to Ed. And we're going to save both of those for that show. If you have a question or feedback like Dudley Grunt, you can call those into our voicemail line at 206-350-3647 or email them to geogearheads@cachamaniacs.com like Ed to Ed did. We love getting your questions for those randomized shows, and we love if you share your tips, tricks, or any kind of feedback for those shows. Anything at all. It's just drop it to us, and if it's applicable, we'll drop it in the show. And we might hear some of those tips tonight, and maybe you'll have something interesting to share next week. Maybe you'll have something to add from the last randomized show, like both Dudley Grunt and Ed to Ed did. So, please call or write in and let us know. We're looking forward to including them in next week's show.
Now, don't forget, you can watch those shows live, too. And you can see me mess up right on the air. That's September 19th at 6:10 p.m. Pacific, 8:10 p.m. Eastern, or September 20th at 1:10 a.m. UTC. Now, we heard that Google will be rolling out a new feature over the next few days, and we hope to be able to actually try the live Q&A function in an upcoming show. But guess what? We're excited that we have that feature tonight on launch day. I think this is a first for a show on geocaching to get a feature from Google Plus on launch day. So this cool feature allows those Google Plus users watching the live stream to ask questions. We see those questions, and somehow they get embedded into the YouTube video. We don't know much about it yet, but we're testing it tonight, and hopefully we'll have a few active Google Plus viewers, like Daryl here, who just asked a question, to see how it works out over the next couple of weeks. So watch the Cachamaniacs.com or Cachamaniacs.com page for a post on the live video stream or our social media presence in a few minutes, and you can catch the show live.
I think you're getting a little distracted by the shiny object that is the...
oh, it's pretty.
Yeah, the live Q&A, and I have to admit that I'm spending a little bit too much time working on this right now, so... this is pretty cool, though. I'm really looking forward to actually trying this next week as we actually have hopefully more people and they can submit questions that we can actually talk about and answer on the show. But before we get to the tips this week, a quick reminder that we need the mailing addresses for everyone who has a traveler in the race. We've been getting some of those over the last week or so, but we still need about a dozen more. That's over half. So please, if you haven't sent in your address or didn't get a reply from me, email geogearheads@cachamaniacs.com with your mailing address and your geocaching.com screen name, which matches the ownership of the trackable. So if you have more than one, make sure you get the right one. We'll be getting those gifts out from GX Proxy and the ones that we included once we get more of those addresses. And thanks again to GX Proxy for donating all of those gifts.
Yes, thank you very much. Now, let's kick off the tips. I'm going to stop looking at the pretty flashing things on the screen and start talking about the tips that our listeners included on their travelers. Let's start with Lafitte FL on C Cache Horsing Around. Actually, he was the highest point gatherer of all the people in the race with 154 points.
Well, actually, there was one who did a little bit better than he did, but it's mostly in German. So we didn't bother translating that since we had so much stuff during the show. And we do hope to get to most of the tips during the show, but we're certainly not going to be able to take all of the great tips from both the listeners who submitted their trackables and from the finders who actually went and posted their notes. So, hopefully we'll get to them. If not, unfortunately, you might have to go and browse through those yourself later on.
Certainly. Now, Lafitte FL said, when hiding a geocache, always try to use your GPSR to get your coordinates. Take multiple readings. I use 4 or 5 and then average them to make an accurate chord for the finder. If you don't have a GPSR, most cachers would be glad to help you out and shoot chords for you. That's a topic often at local events. So if you're new to caching, visit an event, meet a fellow cacher, and learn some new stuff as well.
Yeah, now this is one that I keep harping on is if you go out with like your iPhone, you really need to do this.
Yes.
Yeah, you always need to check your chords. One of the things I like to do, don't get a chance to do it very often, but that I really like to do is go out a couple of days, and I'll usually find that one time I go out there, the chords are way off, so I'll even just throw those ones out. And a lot of the time, I just manually average the chords myself, which is a lot easier to do in decimal form. So if you're going to do that from several devices, you might want to switch them to decimal form ahead of time, so you're in decimal degrees, not in minutes and degrees and decimal minutes, which is what we're used to working with. If you go to the decimal degrees, which is what things like Google Plus works or Google Maps works in, that's what almost any mapping software works with now, because it is so much easier. It's one number instead of multiple numbers that you have to deal with. So if you switch into that format, you can do your averaging really quick and easy. You can put together a spreadsheet that handles that if you want to do that. I've done some databases. I actually did a cool little test playing with a function in the database software that I use on their mobile app, where I actually put together a little waypoint finder that you just sit there and hit the button, and every minute it goes and gets a reading until you tell it to stop, and you can go back and add more readings. It was a lot of fun to just play with it. It's I was trying to test the geolocation function that's actually built in for things like geofencing, make sure that people don't
exactly
put data in when they don't belong there. But it really does, with these smartphones, you really do get a lot of cool functionality. I'm kind of thinking of, now that I've got this stuff figured out a little bit more, I'm going to actually try making it an option to drop in some extra chords from your 60 CSX from your eTrek, so that you can get multiple chords from multiple devices, drop them all into this one database. And you certainly do this in like Google Docs even. And that might even be the better option, really, because then you can go and do a link out to Google Maps right from there, if you know what you're doing, and find out where it's actually taking you and show it to you on the map, and you can get a feel for how accurate your chords are.
Exactly. And don't use the coordinates just from Google Maps. Go out in the field.
Oh, absolutely. Google Maps, though, will give you a good idea of where it is.
Right.
If it says it's in the water on Google Maps by 10, 20 feet, you got a problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, another log that was actually on that same sea cache horsing around traveler was from G Flyer, and his tip or her tip was write a little more than simply TFTC in a log. It adds more to the experience and gives the cache owner some satisfaction reading the story behind each find.
But why? I mean, TFTC tells him you found the cache. What more do you need? And you're thanking them.
Yeah, I think we've talked about this a few times on the show. I really want to put more effort into my logs, and I find I just don't have the time. Doing the templates out of GeoSphere is about all I have time for, and because I'm doing it right there in GeoSphere, I can go and put some little extra notes in there, and if I get around to it, I can clean it up before I actually upload them, or do the field notes and then clean them up on the computer or whatever. So there are some ways to get more than TFTC, But really, it is so much nicer if you get a little bit of a story about the find. If you get something leading up to it. Yeah, and I have to admit, I don't read most of the logs on my caches anymore because most of them are so short and
exactly
pointless.
Now, I find that after I find it, you log it with your smartphone. I've tried typing the message in when I'm walking back, and if you're walking on any sort of uneven trail, there's no way you can type and walk. So what I use is the voice recognition feature of my smartphone. Just talking to it.
Yeah, I was just going to say the voice dictation does do beautifully.
And you can do that while you're walking, so you don't have to stop and wait, for me with my slow thumbs, but I can do it while I'm walking, and that way I can, look around and say, you know what, it's a beautiful day, the cache is in good condition, maybe the log's a little full. Something like that. It's easier than, typing for me, and especially, like I say, walking on an uneven trail or an area where you need to be a little more aware of what you're doing. So, but I agree, the more effort put into the hide, the more effort I put into the log.
All right, well, let's move on to another one from Lafitte FL, which is Cache Patrol, which got 151 points, very impressive again. And the tip he had on that one was always carry tweezers in your cache bag. Mm-hmm. I prefer the locking type, similar to a hemostat used by nurses and doctors. Attached to your GPSR lanyard, it's readily available and a very handy tool indeed.
Indeed. Now, tweezers, not just necessarily hemostats, but anything with a tweezer is really good for those nano logs, to be able to pull those things out. Because, as a cache owner, you want to get as much paper into the cache as you can on those nano logs, so you're not there every other day changing them out. And getting that log book out of a nano is difficult.
Now, before we move on to our next log, we are actually getting questions in from Andrew, and unfortunately, we're not going to really answer those on this show. We'll have to move those to the randomized show because they don't really apply to the tips here. But actually, let's talk about this one real quick. Mm-hmm. Bad Cop, are you seeing the first one here? Do you want to read that about the other sites?
I checked all the other sites recently, and there appears to be no activities in my area. Is geocaching the only source? Well, no, it's not the only source. However, it is the most popular source. So what you may want to do is you can look at, the other sources would be opencaching.org, opencaching.com. It's opencaching. Whatever country you're in.
It's .us, which applies to all of North America, and then usually the whatever country.
So there are multiple sites, multiple listing services. Geocaching.com is by far the most popular. I had a cache listed in opencaching.com and opencaching.us. I had it cross-listed just to see what happens in those two sites, and I got very little activity. Maybe one find a year on it.
Yeah, and that's been my experience as well. Now, he also had posted a question in here. How many GPSs in my car? I seem to have 4 at any given time. Too many. Nuvi, Nexus 4, Oregon 550, Nexus 7, and, my old BlackBerry. Garmin maps are really old. I update regularly and blah, 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 because that's going to get a little bit out of the realm of the topic there. But yeah, that's when it's really nice to have those extra units, is you can use all of those to get some kind of location and then average all of those units together. And you might not get a more accurate location, but what you're going to get is a location that's easier for people to find.
That's really true, and having those different manufacturers of GPSs are really going to help, because each one's going to be off just a little bit, and the more you have, the closer you're going to be when you average those together.
Yep, indeed. Okay, now let's get back to the logs from the travelers, and this next one also comes from GFlyer, who wrote, instead of just writing a log wet or needs maintenance, Pitch in and help out a little. Carry extra spare logs and Ziplocs to help restore a cache that has seen some wear and tear.
Without a doubt. A tip I like to use is carry more than one Ziploc. So if you come across a wet log, take and put that in its own Ziploc bag in the cache and put the new log into another Ziploc bag. If you put the new log with the old log, they just end up as a bigger pile of mush.
Yeah, and in some cases you won't have the option to do both. So it's kind of a nice, if you know the hider, it's kind of a nice thing to just grab that log and pass it off to the hider when you see him or her next, because that way it gets that new log in there without destroying the old one.
That's true.
Trying to cram it in. And I actually ran into one tonight. I'm still trying to keep up with my cache a day streak.
Oh, nice for you.
Well, thank you. I'm at 44 days now, something like that. Or no, 43 days, I guess it would be. But the cache that I was trying to find, the container was gone, and I found the log sheets on the ground. So unfortunately, I didn't get to claim that. Had to go find another cache, but I did grab the log sheets to pass off if the owner actually wants those.
Well, Daryl, isn't the whole key of finding the cache signing the logbook? You can sign the logbook.
Yes, but I couldn't replace it because it's not there anymore. So I did find the log. Yeah, I did find the log. I just couldn't put it back. And actually, I think I know exactly why no one else did, because, well, the last several logs complained about bees, and when I went in to try to find it, yeah, it seems like it was probably hidden right where the bees decided to nest.
Well,
so I think someone just casually dropped it and ran.
Yeah. Well, if it's a good hiding place for a cache, it's good for bees as well.
Yeah, there you go.
The next tip comes from No Name Yet 202. He had the GGH TB race technology tag, and it would interest me on what technology he had on this tag.
Well, that's actually the name of the
that's
brand
the name of it.
Yeah, it was a QR code traveler tag.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, so those are kind of cool.
I hadn't seen those.
Saves you the work of actually making the QR code.
Hey, how about that? Now, he has, for an easy proxy for a geocoin or travel bug, get some thermal laminating sheets from an office supply store, print and cut out a sheet with the tracking code, goals, pictures, whatever else you want, then place that into the laminating sheet. And I should say the laminating sheets are almost pockets. You slide in whatever you're looking for. To laminate, get a household iron, set it to the lowest setting, place a piece of cardboard, not corrugated cardboard, over the sheet, then iron with a back and forth motion. If the plastic is still cloudy, increase the iron settings and repeat until the sheet laminates. So great tip.
This is actually typically referred to as tag board. Cardboard, typically if you go in and ask someone who sells paper products for cardboard, it will be the corrugated cardboard. So you might want to ask for tag board. The other thing that I would imagine would probably work would be a heavy vellum. That might actually be better, but it's going to cost more.
Right.
But I've never tried this. It sounds like it could work, but I don't know. I haven't tried it myself, and I'm not sure that I would want to, since I actually have a laminator. Well,
there you go. If you have a laminator, but the average person doesn't.
No, but I never use my laminator anymore.
So you're pretty average in all that, huh?
Well, I guess so.
Now, there was a log on that entry from, I'm guessing, Edda Crew. It might be Edda Karua. However.
Yeah, it sounds close enough to me.
Whenever I receive a travel bug, I usually give it a fresh baggie if needed, print out a small spreadsheet I create that has a list of all 50 states and check off the states that it has already traveled to. It seems people are more willing to take better care of a fresh travel bug rather than a travel bug with a worn out or torn baggie. So they add on the end, keep them pretty, folks.
Yeah, now this is one thing that I've tried to do several times that I found travelers is replace their tags, and this is probably about the only time I actually use my laminator is print out a version of the trackable page from geocaching.com, laminate it and try to attach it to the trackable, and definitely stick it in a new bag. It gives it a little bit more life, and hopefully if the item that it's attached to isn't in bad shape, it will continue to travel for many, many more years.
Many moons.
Well, let's move on to for Fred's QR code travel beetle, which got 77 points. And this sounds like someone who's learned from experience. He wrote, "Always waymark your car. After having to backtrack on more than one occasion, I have learned this lesson well."
And always is in capitals, so he means always.
Indeed, he does. Yeah, and that is a good point. I did use the breadcrumbs a lot of the time rather than actually marking the car. But it is always nice to have the car marked if you have a device that can do that. So,
right.
It's a good bit of tip, and a lot of people, even if they know where the car is, just like to have something to navigate back to, so that the unit's always navigating to something and telling them how far they are from whatever they want to go to.
Exactly. And anything with breadcrumbs, so that means an actual GPS device, not a smartphone. Smartphone usually doesn't keep track of the breadcrumbs. Yeah,
usually, but there are a couple of the apps that will actually keep some breadcrumbs. The problem is most of them don't keep anywhere close to what a GPS will.
Exactly.
Well, hey, you know what? You can always run Glimpse and follow the breadcrumb off of that.
There you go. Or just leave somebody at the car to holler Marco, and you have to answer with Polo.
Or leave another phone in the car and use the Find My iPhone or the...
there you go.
What's it called? I can't remember what the new Android version of that just launched a couple of weeks ago
I want to say it's called. Find My Android, but that's not right.
No, it's like the Android Device Center. It's far less exciting.
Yeah. Anyway, there's a log on this travel beetle as well from the Moiety. Unless you really like bushwhacking, don't follow Bacardi into the cache.
Yeah, and the Bacardi, I'm sure, is actually one of the cachers.
I hope.
I would hope he's not trying to find Bacardi alcohol and follow that to the cache, because that is a sure sign of problems.
Always.
Now, that said, there's many people who say the same thing about me, so don't follow me to the cache either.
Well, for me, if geocaching isn't a contact sport, I'm doing something wrong.
And the contact with the stinging nettles is part of the contact,
Anything.
I assume?
Yeah. If I come out totally unscathed from a geocache, I didn't do it right.
All right. Well, our next trackable, I think, got its name changed because it's kind of gone missing or something. The name on this is now "Email us, please, if you grab this. Thanks." And that comes from Global Trekkers. And the tip on it is, one of my favorite tips on the show was the use of Neon Geo in geocaching for virtual Earth and puzzle caches. Check out Beta 13. And we're also going to add to that show 56, which was all about Neon Geo.
Mm-hmm. So that one's gone missing and still has 48 points. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, if you got them out early enough and they didn't go missing for a couple of months, you could get some, especially if you took them to events, you could get some serious points on those things.
Exactly. The next entry we have is from Joe Small on Shine a Little Light, GGH 2013, with 41 points. He says, keep a flashlight handy. It's great for exploring those dark crevasses, and it's so much easier to find a trail in the dark. And without a doubt, that is absolutely true. I know I have gone out caching, and it's like it got dark quicker than I expected, and heading back with just this was before there were flashlights on a cell phone, heading back with just the light of the screen of the cell phone doesn't cut it.
No, and that's one thing to keep in mind. You don't want to use the flash on the smartphone or cell phone, whatever you're using. You don't want to use the screen for very long because that really does burn the battery down. Mm-hmm. It's always nice to have just even one of those little keychain flashlights if you don't have anything else will be a better choice because you won't kill that quite as quickly, even though those are those little keychain ones typically don't do too much.
They don't do too much, but it's better than nothing.
Yeah, and we did do the whole show on flashlights, and you can get some just cheap ones off the shelf that are better than nothing. using like the AAA batteries that will fit on your keychain. So try to find something and carry it with you at all times.
Mm-hmm.
That said, I don't do it.
I agree with you. It's that, well, let's just get one more. So you're not prepared because you think, oh, we can get in and out in time. And no, when the sun goes down, the woods get dark pretty quick.
Yeah, well, and it's especially bad when you're going for an FTF. Because that's when you're like, oh, we gotta go. And you're just out, you're going, and then you don't realize that, well, this is a quarter-mile hike in the woods. Oh, no, this is actually more like a three-quarter-mile hike because of this big ravine over here.
Exactly.
And then, you're still going for it, and then the sun goes down, and you still haven't found it yet, and you're trying to find your way to the cache and back without the appropriate tools. So another great reason to have a go bag.
I've done FTFs at night with the big mag light, and I feel like, I was out there, I felt so conspicuous, like I was carrying a lightsaber, waving it around in the woods. It was like, somebody's going to see me out here.
See, I've actually carried around the lightsabers in the woods.
Okie dokie.
Well,
let's go on to a log. No, I'm not touching that one.
Well, one of the things that's fun about the lightsabers is you have a couple of the lightsabers, and you run around with them to kind of mark the beginning and the end of the group. So if people get lost in the big night caching groups, it's a great way for them to kind of orient themselves as to where the rest of the group can be.
So you get 4 people, 1 on each corner of the group, and they can,
essentially,
as long as they're inside the lightsabers, they're okay?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, okay. I thought you were going somewhere else with that one, and I didn't want to go there. Okay. Now, back to shine a little light. There was a log on this travel bug from the Small Ball crew. One tip we have is carry extra Ziploc bags and little golf pencils to leave in a cache if you are visiting and the cache needs a little help. I absolutely agree. Again, Ziploc bags, wonderful thing to carry. Now, those little golf pencils, one of the things is those will fit into a film canister or an Altoids tin.
Yeah, and that seems to be a good theme that we have going with a lot of these logs in tips is that, try to do some maintenance for other people. And Minnesota's boys, Goofy, Traveler, which got 36 points, his tip on that one was always carry a good selection of baggies of different sizes to replace the ones on logs that need them. This will help keep the logs dry. Now, when I started carrying the baggies, all we carried were the big Ziploc baggies because you still had a bunch of the small and larger caches. Now I couldn't stuff one of those into most of the caches around here if I tried really, really hard.
Right.
Even if I melted it down into a liquid form and poured it in, I don't think most of the caches would fit a full liquid Ziploc bag.
What I usually do is in a gallon Ziploc bag, put in a couple more gallons, a couple of sandwich size, and a few of the snack Ziploc baggies. So you always have a selection.
Yeah, and if you like gnawing on plastic, you have lots of snacks yourself.
Exactly. Well, Minnesota Boy had another cache or another travel bug as well called Rumpelstiltskin, and that got 32 points. And this is very similar to Joe Smalls. Always have a flashlight with you, even during the daytime. Comes in handy to light up those dark holes. And you don't want to poke your hand into places you can't see.
No, very true. And Minnesota Boy did very well getting people to post logs on his travelers. The last one had a couple of logs. This one actually had 3 logs. First one that I found was from Gravity Bear, who said, always have another person with you if the cache requires you to climb a tree. Don't climb alone. I
thought that was very interesting coming from Gravity Bear.
So did I, and it sounds like this is, again, someone who might have learned from experience.
Exactly. But I always say never cache alone. Never go...
I was just going to say that.
Even a quarter mile without someone.
Yeah, and I have to admit, I do a lot more caching without anyone now, but at least when I do, I try to send a glimpse to someone so they know where I am, and if I don't check in again, they know where to look for me should something happen. And I've talked with people who have gotten stuck in the woods or whatever overnight because they broke something and couldn't get out on their own and didn't have cell service or whatever, and yeah, it's not a good place to be.
Exactly. So make sure if you're going alone, somebody knows where you are. The
Yep.
next log. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to read the next log as well, which comes from Jensen Travels,
Jensen Travels.
which fits right in with that earlier one. Look before sticking a hand in a hole, and watch where you sit looking around on the ground. When looking around on the ground, because that's something that we know many people who have run into problems where they poke their hand where it doesn't belong, and someone doesn't want it there.
Yep, I've done that. I knew the cache had to be in this guardrail. Reached in there and came out with a wasp sting on me. It's like,
Yes.
okay, I'm done for the day. I had time to do more caches,
usually,
but no, I'm done for the day.
Yeah, my problem is usually kicking them or whatever because I don't see them. I don't see their nest in the ground, and I've actually had to come running out of the woods with a trail of yellow jackets following me.
And now all the cartoons say you got to jump in the water. Did you do that?
If there was water around, I probably would have done that. And mind you, this was before I had a smartphone, so I could have probably jumped in the water without a problem.
Oh, there you go. The next log is from Evil Rhino. I kind of like that name. Goes with the bad cop, Evil Rhino. Don't look for the cache. Look for the place you would hide the cache. It's a great tip.
Indeed. And, that's one of those ones that it kind of fits into the geo sense. Once you start caching, you're building up that experience level, and then it becomes kind of second nature where you can just kind of look around. Well, that's where I would hide a cache. It must be over there.
Exactly. I can't tell you the number of caches. My GPS said, nope, it's right here. It's zeroed out. And I look and I go, I wouldn't put a cache here. This had to be where he stepped out of the woods onto the trail to get the reading. No, this is not where the cache is hidden.
Yeah. All right, and the last of the Minnesota Boy trackables was U.S. Flag History Geocoin that only got 18 points, but on that one he wrote, always log the trackables you pick up or drop as soon as you can. This keeps the trackable owner informed as to the location and keeps the inventory of caches up to date. Don't be afraid to write a note about anything relating to your experience.
Mm-hmm.
And a follow-up log on that from Gravity Bear as well said, geocoins go missing so often. Are people forgetful or dishonest? Please move them along and log them responsibly.
I like that. And I don't know, are people forgetful or dishonest? I think a lot of the time it's simply honest forgetfulness, meaning that I put it in my bag, it slipped all the way to the bottom, and I didn't see it.
Yeah, and a lot of it is kind of the clumsy thing. Oh, I thought I put this in this cache because I don't see it anymore, and I thought I put it in there, but in fact you didn't.
Right. So I think a lot of that isn't dishonest.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of it is honest. Oops, I thought I took care of it, or just forgot it. So, that's one of the reasons that you want to get them moving as quickly as possible, because the less time you have them, the less time there is to forget that you have them.
Mm-hmm. So the next set of travel bugs we have are named for the host of British motoring programs. We have a Top Gear series of travel bugs. The first one, Top Gear UK, the Stig. Got 34 points. It's from our friend DeBear. It says, when hiding caches, try to make as many readings as possible and approach the GZ from different directions, GZ being ground zero. When I hide a cache, I use both of my GPSs with me, or 3, 4, however many you have with you. I take readings from each GPSR using a 3 to 4 minute average of the location when I scout it out, and take more readings when I hide the container. Then I average out all of the readings and use those as my posted coordinates. By taking multiple readings and approaching multiple directions to the GZ, you help eliminate the inaccuracies in the coordinates. The finder still has to deal with the inaccuracies of his own device, but at least you've helped them make their job a little bit easier.
Yeah, and that one goes right along with the thread that we had earlier about averaging, so that was a good one. And he actually had a log on that one from Hoosier Sunshine. Always bring extra pens and logs. Boy, I think that's a thing we're going to see a lot here.
Well, if there were Ziploc bags included in that, we got it all covered.
Yeah, there you go.
Now, DeBear has another one of the Top Gear UK series, Jeremy Clarkson. This one came in at 29 points. And the tip on it is bring a hiking stick with you when you cache. Having a stick can be a very handy thing to have. Not only does it allow you to follow Head Hardhat's favorite tip of poke it with a stick, a hiking stick also has some other uses. For example, it can give you stability on rocky, slippery, or uneven terrain. And it can be used to reach objects that are out of reach. It can be used as a weapon if you encounter a dangerous animal and have to defend yourself. And finally, it can be used in an impromptu place to rest a camera. Think monopod. All great benefits, to be sure.
Yeah, and some of those actually do have the quarter 20 bolt or bolt on the top, so that you can actually screw your camera right into those and actually use them as a monopod, or in some cases they actually have little tripod legs so that you can stand it up and use it that way. So if that's what you're looking for, there are some great tools out there to do that.
And there's a nice clip that you can screw your camera onto, put it at the end of your hiking pole and get it way out away from you to get a we call them selfies now. I was going to say a self-portrait, but they're just simply called selfies now.
Yep.
Third in DeBear's UK series, or Top Gear UK series, is James May, also known as Captain Slow. He came in third. He didn't come in last at 23 points. Carry more than one type of pen, including one that has a light-colored ink, and a pencil. Not only do pens have a habit of getting lost, sometimes wet logs are hard to write on with certain pens, but others work okay. Some logs are actually on dark backgrounds, so a light-colored pen helps make your signature on those logs more visible.
That's a great one that I hadn't thought about too often, but yeah, I could see that helping out quite a bit. Let's go to our next one, also from that same series, which is Richard Hammond, which got 20 points. And he wrote on that one that a camera can be a useful tool in a geocacher's toolbox. Aside from taking pictures of adventures, it has some other uses, for example, to remember information. Taking a picture of the map at the trailhead or the sign with information that you need for a virtual, so that you can have the information in hand when you get home or get lost. Take a picture of the coordinates for the next stage of a multicache in case you accidentally write down the wrong numbers, or use a camera to take pictures of places inside holes or under things that are difficult to get to. I call this recon by camera. Finally, if you have an Android phone, your images are automatically uploaded to Google Plus account. I am sure to use my Android phone to take pictures of information I will need when logging my caches, virtual answers, or TB codes, so they are already on my computer when I need them.
Nice. Now, I use my phone to recon by camera quite a bit, and that's really useful. I can get it down into a location, snap a picture, look at it, and go, I'm glad I didn't reach my hand in there.
Yeah, I do a lot of that, and I use a lot of the Evernote stuff for keeping track of the multi-caches and that kind of thing, because it gives me a good way to keep that all in place. And that was actually the theme of one of my travelers that I put into the race, and I had to release that one twice, as you might recall, because the first one went missing on the first place I dropped it. Wow. And I only ended up with 23 points on this one, which was the GeoGearHeads 2013 Evernote Racing Coin number 2. And the log that I had, or the tip that I had on both of those, the number 1, which got lost, and number 2. One of my favorite tips on the show was the use of Evernote in geocaching. I've been using it myself, mostly for virtual, earth, and puzzle caches, and it's been a huge help with access online and offline in the field, at home, at the office, and at the coffee shops. That was on show Beta 9 for anyone interested in checking it out.
Right. So you spend a lot of time at the coffee shops, do you?
Actually, that's where we did a lot of our puzzle solving. Those icky rainy days when you want to get out of the house and do something, it's kind of like going to the library and doing your research. We'd sit down with the laptops at the coffee shop and just hack away at the puzzles. And we solved, I'd say, like 20 or 30 puzzles in one day at the coffee shop, just sitting there with the laptops, putting it all into Evernote. So it is a good way to do a lot of that puzzle solving on those days when you want to do something geocaching, just not actually go geocaching.
Yeah. Now, you got a log on this travel bug from Scrapcat. When attaching a magnet to a paint by number container, use amazing goop and not epoxy or super glue. During varying weather, the glue remains flexible and the magnet won't just pop out.
Yeah, that actually applies to a lot of the different types of containers, and it's really kind of tough, as we kind of mentioned on a couple of our other shows, finding those good adhesives to take care of a lot of those kind of problems.
Now, paint by numbers are not, the paint by number containers are not big around here for me. I found them and know what they are, but it's not a huge thing. So, is it big where you are, Daryl?
It is, because about 2 or 3 miles from my house is the company that has the patent on paint by numbers, or had the patent. I think the patent's probably expired by now. So we have a lot of the paint by numbers containers in our dollar stores and whatnot over here.
Okay.
I think largely because the company that does those is right around the corner.
That would do it.
It does indeed. Now, we had been talking about the QR codes a little earlier, and my GeoGearHeads 2013 QR racing coin actually used one, and it had on the log itself a trick that I found and talked about on show Beta 43, useful to generate a QR code as a quick means for people to discover your trackables. My write-up on how to create these QR codes is available on my blog titled Quick Trackable Logging by QR Code. Now, one of the interesting things that actually came up on this one was I had used, to make it quick and easy, some thermal labels off of a dedicated label printer,
right,
which I knew weren't going to last very long, but it looks like in caches it only lasted about 2-3 months. So yeah, don't use the thermal labels because those will have a lot more problems than ones printed from a laser or inkjet. And really, in most cases, what I find, the colored laser printers are probably the best thing you're going to find.
Mm-hmm. Inkjet, no matter how long you let it dry, as soon as that hits water, that ink begins to run again. So.
Absolutely. And one of the interesting things that most people don't realize about the color laser printers is they're actually using plastic as their toner. So that, in most cases, when properly adhered to an appropriate paper, doesn't want to come off even when it gets wet, and it tends not to fade as easily as some others will as well. So there's a lot of different things, but one of the best ones that I found is really expensive and doesn't apply to stickers, but the adventure paper from National Geographic. If you want something that's going to really last outdoors, that's about the best thing I could find. It doesn't fade as quickly. It doesn't have as much problems. And the trick was you want to use one of the inkjet printers with the higher performance inks, like the Ultrachrome inks from Epson, for instance. Those did not fade. They didn't run. They didn't do anything. And I was just amazed at the quality of those. But it is really expensive to pull that off.
However, you printed them all at home.
I did. So.
There's an advantage to that.
Yeah, indeed. Now, another one of the ones that I released and really, really liked, but didn't do well at all, was the GGH 2013 Race Traveling Tip Exchange, and that one only got 6 points. But this is the one that I actually attached a little notebook to it to collect the logs, and unfortunately, somewhere along the way, that notebook got removed. So I'm thinking someone needed a log for a cache that they were at and used it for that and disconnected the traveler. But they said, or the tip that I had there was about linking to the logs at geocaching.com using BB code, and we've gone over that a few times here, so we won't go into that. But I did get a couple of logs with tips, including one from Papa's Chick. Always, always, always mark where you park the car. We learned the hard way wandering in some woods for an hour or so before we found our way out. Since then, this tip has saved us many times. That one sounds vaguely familiar.
Yes, it does. Now, here's a tip from Peek and Seek Jr. Bug spray and sunscreen should be worn simultaneously. You know, you could even wear them at the same time.
Indeed. Now, doing it old school by Team Orville got 21 points. And that tip was to use the website Log Them All to log your discovered trackables at one time. And the website is logthemall.cano.sk. I've never tried that site, but sounds pretty interesting.
And I look at it, and all I can read is Log Them All.
So it's a foreign one.
Log Them All. Team Shiny had a travel bug, Caching Friend. That gathered 20 points. Caching tip number 1, if you ever find your flashlight is already dead when you pull it out of the bag, somehow it got turned on, take out one battery, put it in backwards, so that the plus and the minus are not lined up. It won't hurt at all, and now you'll have a dead light when you go to arrive at that night cache, or you won't have a dead light, I apologize, when you arrive at that night cache you've been planning to do all week. So pull out, flip the battery around, and then you can put it in a bag. You won't fear it'll ever turn on.
That's an interesting tip, but I'm thinking that might actually cause some issues with some of the newer flashlights, the newer LEDs, because I think we were actually talking about that on that show, that the manufacturers tell them to not do that.
Well, if you just turn one battery around, it shouldn't be too much of an issue.
I wouldn't think that it would, but now I'm beginning to wonder, because I seem to remember that being an advisory from some of the manufacturers of the LEDs.
So what you could do is loosen an end cap so that it doesn't make contact. So the batteries don't
I was going to say probably your best bet would to actually be just take a piece of paper or something and stick it at the end. And that way you won't have the same problem. There's all kinds of different tips that we've come across for keeping the batteries fresh. So check those out on the. I think that was on our flashlight show, which we'll of course have to link to in the show notes here. And we're going to wrap it up after this last tip on that trackable. The second tip on that one was bring something to drink when you're caching. If your mouth is dry, then you're on your way to being dehydrated. Your caching friend should always have access to water. If you have extra water at the end of the day, you did well. Besides, you might find a cache that needs water to float a cache to grab it.
That's always true. And a good tip, always have water. You
Indeed.
can never have too much.
And we know far too many cachers who found out the hard way that dehydration is pretty easy to do when you're out on the trail.
That's right. So that's what we're going to end up with for today. Remember, next week is our randomized show. So come on over, do the Q&A in the Google Plus Hangouts. It worked really well tonight, so we can use that next week as well. And we've already got some calls and some emails in, but your comments are always important.
Check the Cachemaniacs website at cachemaniacs.com for more on the GeoGearHeads, including show notes to this and all of our episodes. We love hearing from our listeners, so leave us feedback by calling 206-350-3647, by emailing geogearheads at cachemaniacs.com, or through social media. Your support helps keep the Cachemaniacs shows coming. Please consider making a PayPal donation through the link on our website to support the Cachemaniacs shows. GeoGearHeads is produced by Chris Suffenauer and Daryl Wanberg. This show is copyright 2013 by Daryl Wanberg, all rights reserved.
Cash with the Cachemaniacs.